Evening all. Right. Um, I guess it's the easiest way to go around this is I screwed up yesterday. So I don't know if you can see the top of the box there. See if this actually lets me zoom in a little bit. Yeah, top of the FOD box, I completely messed it, but all I did was literally copy that, paste it, angle it, paste it again, and then scale it to fit, and then re-UV it and whatever. There's a little bit of work to do on the back. I also added the air data probes, which you can see those little sort of horns, pitot probes on the side of either side of there. It's probably going to be easier to show you on here. So the missile approach warning mounts with the sensors. It's one type of the 2 or 3 types of sensor. I can't remember. That's on this particular vintage of Seaking. There's some unique HC6R details. There's the radio antennas on the back. I can't remember what it is. VHF, UHF, whatever. There's a shed load of more antennas, but a lot of this stuff is things that I don't think are particularly interesting to watch me do. They're just like the same techniques over and over again. So what I want to focus on tonight is tail rotor, sorry. Mainly just so I can actually start getting some proper proper renders of the damn thing. Right, so I've just copied and pasted that in so I can get a center point. So slice that. Now I know that should be the center, and we can check that just by. So if we go 50 mil. Damn it. I don't know how long this stream's going to be because I am absolutely shattered. It has been a very long day. There you go. So it is the approximate center. So let's just go into top view for the moment. What I thought was going to be a fairly quiet day with only a few meetings turned into an epic of politics, office politics, rather than world politics or whatever. To borrow the phrase from my boss, it is a geopolitical fight, but with pillows and soft chairs. So there's been an outbreak of bitchy bickering with one of the companies that I'm working with, and I don't know how, given that I don't work in that office, I work from home, somehow I got involved in it. Me and my boss are still trying to work out why I'm part of it, but, you know, what the hell. So I am just quickly unwrapping these. But yeah, never underestimate the pettiness of humans. I thought I was getting emotionally blackmailed by a former friend was enough, but yeah, this is getting a bit silly. Right. Sorry, I'm doing stuff off screen. I'm literally just unwrapping cylinders at the moment. Like what I'm trying to do is, let's go and grab the reference. So that's the old bit of the model. Now, I don't know what Reforger is like for doing articulation and why if it's needed at all. I still haven't got around to really getting into the helicopter side of things. I'm just making models at this point. So let's ref tail rotor. But I want to do, I mean, this is a grand total of 246 polygons. It's an exercise in minimalist, or minimalism. It's just the basics of what you need to have for it to be acceptable. So I'm going to leave that active in the background. So I'm going to switch it on and off if needs be. But what we're trying to do, there we go, is recreate that, but with more detail. So if you look at this, that is the complex mess that is the Seaking's tail rotor. So what I want to do is I want to create these bosses and create a lower version, lower polygon version of this. See, when I originally made the HC6 model, I obviously either didn't know what I was looking at or didn't realise that that was just a storage cover to stop it from flapping around. And I think I made that. I think that's what that boss is supposed to be. So in reality, it's not there. You can just see it's designed to hook on to stop the blades from flapping backwards and forwards when you move it, or store it, or it's in the wind or whatever. Oh, that would have been useful earlier. I'm making some stuff for the winch things. I'm making some stuff offline. Didn't realise that was actually in there. That would have been helpful. Fair enough. Right. Yeah, so let's have a look at this. Let's see what we can do here. I don't need my remote desktop. So, so it's five rotor, which is 72 degrees for each arc. So I am just going to go in the right view. Let's turn ref off for a moment. Let's turn the right side on. So I've either got that too low or too not sure. Front view. Yeah, it looks like it's too low off here, which means I've got my tail wrong, or I can probably just move. Yeah. So let's turn those off. It's a bit better. So from the look of this, I am just that little bit too low, and I'm perhaps being a bit too optimistic. So if I come up here, what's that? It's 106 mil. 108 mil. Not sure that's going to be the best idea, but we can mess with the actual placement later on. So, how thick is that shaft, which is the original reason I went looking? When you want something, it's always almost impossible to find the right kind of picture. Excuse me. So you can see that's obviously the rotor without the cover. I'm just trying to find a pic that kind of shows where that sits, or sorry, the thickness of the shaft proportionally. Don't think it really matters at this stage, but since we are likely just going to be frigging it, I'm torn with what to do. So copy that, paste, rotate, let's go through 90. And looking at this, if I scale this down, copy, paste, 90 in the Z. There's no faces on the bottom. I'm just going to quickly grab those, just remove the face off that. I tend to be a bit more productive when I'm not explaining it, but I'm also at the same time sorry, I tend to be a little bit faster and more productive when I'm not sort of explaining, but I'm also listening to sort of music and podcasts and bobbing around and doing silly, stupid voices and things, so a lot of this is just so that it started out because somebody asked me how I did something, what techniques I used, or at least how I approached a model. So this was just an excuse to do it. if you look up here, I'm still running the links in parallel. We can have a look at that later, but this is more for a public, long-running, sort of themed project, I guess. Right, so just to explain what I'm actually trying to make is this boss going into that. And again, we're not going to go full high tech. So I am just going to copy and paste there. Right, okay, there are edges on that. So let's go into this other one. I am just going to go to the front view so you can see what I'm doing. So that's right. So what I want to do is make the what's it plate, the mount, the flapper plate, I guess. I don't know whether that's the right term or not. Not big into helicopter engineering, if I'm honest. They're more interesting to fly in simulator than fighters, in my opinion, but at the same time, maybe blasphemy for some. At the same time, they're a bit more of a technical challenge, but I don't like being in real helicopters. Been in a few, and I know too much about the engineering to be comfortable in one. Laughing at my own jokes, but I genuinely do know a little bit too much about the physics involved in keeping the damn thing in the air, and I'm not entirely 100% confident. At least with aircraft, with fixed-wing aircraft, you can glide. I know you can auto-rotate in a helicopter, but there is several points of failure that make that very difficult to do if the rotor decides it doesn't want to be on the helicopter anymore. So yeah, I'm just... That and some of the helicopters actually make me want to puke. Oh shit. I've just tried to scale in the X, which would have squashed it flat. So, geometry. Vertex merge. So there we go. Saw a couple of news articles today. I mean, the legacy stuff, I was kind of looking for this kind of stuff as well, but it's really funny to see BIS having to, again, post a reminder about false videos using Arma gameplay as war footage. So, again, all of this is unwrapped at the moment. So let's just pack that in there just to keep things clean. So, let's look at this. So what we've done there is the boss going to the center. This, we need to make a little shaft popping out. And we'll grab this again for that. so it's a half. So again, while this is actually unwrapped, it's not necessarily the right UV scale. So I am just going to quickly so if I do this, so that's the part that we just copied. This is the one we're unwrapping. Oh, these will jump around a bit when I pack them. It looks like I am just slightly longer, so not really the end of the world. Right, let's go on to the top. Sorry, to the front, let's do this. So again, by grabbing it and picking it, I've moved it in several different axes. So I'm just going to go there and there, zero that back out. We're going to make this a little bit thicker. So I also need to copy this again, but what I am going to do briefly, because there's no ends on these, if I go with a poly tool and select that loop, there's nothing there to grab, and I need this to be closed. So I'm going to grab the edge, sorry, in the wrong tool. I'm going to grab that edge, and I'm just going to quickly extend it. Vertex, join average, vertex, join, so that's closed. I go geometry, polygon, merge, which makes it an n-gon. So it's merging all the triangulated faces into an n-gon. Copy and paste, flip it over. Geometry, vertex, merge. So that's sealed the box. So if I select this, and the nice thing about Modo, there's a tool here, there's a bounds tool, so it shows me any open edges. So if I, if I copy that, paste it, so again, if I go to bounds, it shows me which edges are open. Okay. Right, so, not that this is a great reference for any of this side view. Just going to scale it, because what I want is we're dealing with this right now. So, what I'm going to do, actually, let's see if there's a better image that I can use. I can just dump in. Is there a proper slide on? If I can just dump it in Modo, you can see what I'm doing better there. I'm lucky for something that's directly side on, but don't think I'm going to get that lucky. Just while I'm thinking, because I'm in the middle of doing something else as well, commercially. Someone has, at least two people now have asked me about buying the models that I'm making, and it depends who I'm going to, if how I sell them. To be quite honest, I'm looking at creating an asset store, or at least selling on various asset stores. I'm meeting with a lawyer to come up with some licensing stuff for a wider project that I'm looking at as well. So potentially, yeah, you'll be able to buy some of these models in various asset stores or direct from me on the market. They won't be set up specifically for Arma. But yeah, there'll be some option to buy some of the models. Not all of them, but some of them. So, let's grab these verts. There's no picture of that I can stick on there, just give it a proper view, proper whatever. So, I don't know, I am just blah 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 blah. There's no side view of the rotor that I can actually use. At least not a high enough resolution or quality. So again, just doing a quick unwrap. So, let's go to right view. So I need to adjust. So if that's the... See, so much of this you're not going to see, and I'm tempted to just go full idiot and do I have to keep fighting this urge to. I'm tempted to just make a full, like, high quality model for it, high poly model. But if I do that, I'm just going to end up wasting polygons. I'm going to just, well, yeah, you're just not going to see it. You're not going to care about it. So once again, I am guessing here. So I'm going to put 2 in there. And I'm going to put 50 mil in there because I can scale that easily. put, yeah, 55 in there. 135 sounds about right. So what I want to do is just make sure that is centered. I'm not too worried about the X position at the moment. Let's go out onto edges, let's grab this. Actually, hang on. Edge bevel. Let's put 2.5 mil in. Let's do that as a 6. I rarely use Instagram. It's more used for research or keeping up with maybe 2 friends. And I don't know why. At some point, I obviously said let it send me notifications, and it seems to send it midstream every time. It's the only time I ever see it. So, yeah, it sits inside that. So, just to satisfy my OCD, let's make sure it's equal depth. Let's grab those verts. Again, just a quick unwrap, just to keep my sanity rolling, and so I don't lose anything. Yeah, so going back to commercial stuff, I'll be putting versions of things on Fab and things like that for Unreal and whatever. Like I say, a couple of people have asked me about it in the past. I will not be porting stuff into Reforger for people. It's against the rules. But the models will be available for other people to work with under license terms. I don't know if Fab does transfers into Reforger or allows cross-platform stuff. I haven't really looked into it. It's one of the reasons I want to talk to a lawyer. Right, so paying IP insurance, as I mentioned the other day, I might as well use it. So one of the boons of that insurance is that I get to ask legal advice for, well, not free because I am already paying for it, but it doesn't cost me a fortune. So if it's there, why not? But I have this massive library of models, so I might as well go back to selling and at least trying to make something off them, given that there's thousands of hours invested in them. 6 mil. Because for my own projects for Arma, it's not true to say that I'm pivoting away from doing British stuff, because I'm not. I have some plans of my own. I think the last few years have demonstrated that the better way to do Arma is to do Arma as a large pack, as a mod pack, rather than individual add-ons. I know several groups that would prefer it come as individual add-ons so they can pick and choose. I get that, but there are advantages just to doing big packs and curating a big pack. I have a number of friends that I'm working with, or have been working with in the past and hope to continue working with, when Arma 4 finally hits. And I'm hoping that those relationships will persist. But yeah, I have a narrative story pack that I'd like to put out, that I think is interesting. I'd like to continue with the IAP theme. That's been evolving for a long time. So experiences with other mod teams have kind of convinced me that if you want to make a mark in the community, it has to be as a coherent package. I don't think that's going to be news to any of the sort of hardcore modders that have been around for a long time. And I think one of the other things that I've definitely learnt is that if you doing a bit of the jobbing side of things, where you're just making stuff for yourself and for groups to slot in, compatibility is an issue. It's better to build your own little microcosm. Again, some people may not like to hear that, but I think it's probably going to be the only way that I get to survive, or at least keep my interest long enough to do it, if I build my own little environment, my own play space that is not part of anybody else's. So my own theatre of war, my own sort of narrative storyline. I don't plan on doing any Russian stuff, because RHS is just going to do what they always do and blow it right out of the park. So, you know, you just can't. There's no need to compete with RHS. but they've got their own little microcosm of values and hit system. Well, they've gone back more towards vanilla in recent years, I believe, and I'm not going to criticise on that. I just think I can't help but think that it's going to be less painful if I make my own little environment. ArcSL will continue as a tag. That'll let me do side projects, for almost lack of a better description. UCAF is going to continue, UK Armed Forces. Again, that is, when that kind of started out, that was more of a collaboration between me and Mike Phoenix to make Bovington and some of the other maps. I'm hoping Mike's still up for that. We've not really talked about it recently. Bovington is still being done. Battus for Reforger was, well, it's done actually. There is the terrain and everything else is in. There's a lot of work to do with it because Battus is actually probably going to be the easier, but because of the game engine limitations that come along with Reforger, namely map size and some of the new add-on features and game engine capabilities that I'm not quite comfortable with yet. There's still quite a bit more to do, but I'm kind of hoping that Mike's gonna want to get involved in that. I certainly know that the British Armed Forces guys, the esports guys, are keen for it. At least Tanky is, because he wants Mike's Challenger and the Jackal and everything else should play nicely in there. As I'm sorry, but I can't say it. I can never pronounce it. Tepeshlo. His British Forces stuff, I'm sure, will play nicely on Battus and whatever. I have Salisbury Plain in progress as well. But again, the issue with Salisbury Plain that I had trying to get in Arma 3 is the buildings pack. Putting anything that was sort of Altis or Livonia or whatever it was into a British environment looks honestly surreal. It just looks wrong. So the issue has always been about creating custom content, custom add-ons for it to support it. So that, there's a lot of work involved in those custom buildings. I have most of them modelled. It's just getting them in Reforger, or in Infusion rather. There's a lot of the other training areas as well. I managed to get hold of 1 meter DEMS for digital elevation maps, that is. So 1 meter resolution DEMS for Stanta, Seni Bridge, Catrick training area, which I can't remember the designation for off the top of my head. Pretty much most of the major ranges in the mainland UK at a very high resolution. So that promises to be fun. So I want to go about 70%, I think. On no, it's going to be thinner. That's about right. So yeah, anyway, there are plans to continue pretty much everything that I've been doing already. It's just maybe in a slightly different form. I don't know really what Mike wants to do. I know he's got MPX rolling in Reforger at the moment. He's certainly learning the engine. But he has a personal life, as do we all. So life often gets in the way, and he has more responsibilities than most with the little girl. So I don't know really what his timeline is or anything like that. Need to catch up. But as always, this is a hobby. It is not a business. Things get, published when they're ready. And no one likes to be stressed about the hobby, so expect it when it's ready. So I am just going to grab this. I'm going to go to the right view. I'm going to be lazy. And I am literally just going to go project from view. So in Modo, you got the overlay system. So the fact that it's orange tells me that the front faces here are mapped, but the faces behind it are also mapped, but they're facing the other way. If that was bright red, that would tell me that all the faces were facing the same direction. They're not. So I'm alright with the orange like that. So we need to just unwrap this block. Sorry. So I do this. So that becomes our blade. But the bottom of that still has a face on it, so we can get rid of that. Realistically, yeah. So I'll split that off. Let's see where that's come from. Fit selected. Oh wow, okay. That was the top of that. So just it's that for some reason is not joining because you can still see it. So 14 edges. That sounds about right. 14 verts. Geometry vertex merge. Just grab that as an edge. Ooh, I didn't like that. That suggests something. There we go. Usually when it doesn't, this is part of the reason that I kind of like want to UV unwrap as I go, is you will see weird things happen with the unwrap, with like missing faces and things like that, or duplicate faces that will save you time further down the road. So let's just snap those two together. Like I say, probably not going to be the final unwrap, so it doesn't really matter. So alright, we're not finished with that blade, sorry. I'm just getting ahead of myself. So, let's go and get the actuator lever, which is this thing. And that's the thing that changes the pivot of the blade, and or the link arm that changes the pivot of the blade, which controls the yaw of the helicopter. As I said earlier, I do know actually how they fly. I'm just not sure about a lot of the engineering because it's just not my thing. I'm aware of the physics. I'm aware of the impossibility of them and the fail modes and things like that. But short of designing some of the cockpit instrumentation for the Merlin, or at least the control knobs, I've not really done much on helicopters. Just trying to think what else I've done. Worked for a company that was subcontracted for, it was McDonnell Douglas at the time, this is about 97, 98, and they were making, this is when Westland was still assembling Apaches. And I worked on a part of a project that was making, as part of the UK offset deal, making titanium T-section daggers that were part of the rear fuselage of the Apache. And I had to redesign them for the company I was working for. It doesn't exist anymore. It's called Chevron Aerospace. It was bought out by somebody else, a Canadian fastener company, if I remember rightly. So yeah, I had to kind of slightly redesign the part so we could make it with the materials and the machine tools that we had. It was kind of a fun project. Trying to remember who else we were doing stuff with. Did something with Robinson Helicopters again, but that was more business than engineering. I was involved in the human interface cockpit design, or ergonomics of the cockpit design, consulting on making tooling. or what was, I'll rephrase this. In the Merlin, there are some very specifically shaped dials on some of the instrumentation. And there's an ergonomic shape, and the idea is so that you can identify that control either wearing night vision goggles or with limited light regimes. It's not a new idea, but we were involved in choosing the shapes, about me specifically about what could be made cheaply enough and uniquely enough, what process and techniques could be used as a production engineer. Again, it's a cool claim to fame, but most of my time was spent on Airbus, mostly A320 family, so that's A318, 19, 20, 21, but on 340 on wide body, which is 330 and 340, and then 340 600s, which are the extended length. I spent some time on the stage 1 through 4 of the wing assembly at Chester, and then moved down to Airbus at Filton, working for the data exchange team, Extend Enterprise, which now is just how people work, but back then was something a little bit different and a little bit special. Right, I'm looking at that and going, have I just done that right? No, it needs to be, the knuckle needs to be in the middle of the bar there. So all of this, so I grab all of that. So did a little bit of work on Nimrod MR4 before they cancelled it, but it was more about the contracts than the actual engineering. There's a guy that I worked with on a nuclear project for Sellafield. This was B38 waste management and reprocessing. And Gordy, he used to be an engineer at Westlands in the 70s, and he was really fun to work with. He was really fascinating. The lunchtime conversations were brilliant. Unfortunately, he's well and truly gone now. He's long time past. It's probably 15 years ago. Lovely guy, though. Some fantastic stories. Trying to think who else, or what else. Typhoon, obviously. Nearly got fired over a fight with somebody. At Airbus. EADS, Simpa, who were doing data exchange stuff I mentioned in the past. They were trying to send gigs worth of data in the era. This is an era when we only had ISDN, and they wanted to send hundreds of gigs of data a day across 6 different countries, and they wouldn't accept that what they were doing was going to bankrupt the company. So I got in trouble for, I came back to the UK to be told I was in trouble. I didn't know at the time I was in trouble. My boss was with me at the time. I just thought it was quite funny, but apparently it went round the entire organisation very quickly that I'd picked a fight with I didn't know, but it was the head of German data exchange at the time. But she was just talking bollocks, so I did what I normally do and just called her on the bollocks. Which, in the UK, any engineer was entitled to do in our engineering meetings. You know, that was part of the thing. But apparently that was not the done thing in Germany, so Uncle Rock got a slap on the wrist. Not the first, won't be the last. When I got the slap on the wrist, my boss actually defended me, you know, came out and supported me, so I can't criticise Dave for that. He was again, lovely fella. Bit ditzy, but lovely. And I came back and my boss's boss, because I was Tom Enders was the exec of Airbus at the time, and his office was literally in the same room as mine. And directly under Tom was a horrible woman called Carolyn. And then there was my department head called Mike, and then my immediate boss Dave, and then me. So you can see roughly how far up the tree I was. So it was a fairly senior bollocking. So it's quite entertaining. But I spent 3 years fighting with Carolyn. She did everything she could to get rid of me. And finally, I think, pushed her over the edge to use an excuse. Dirty tricks was me laughing at her because she didn't know how to do an underscore on a keyboard. So I just thought it was somebody that was, you know, in charge of a huge tech division of a very technical aerospace company. I just thought it was hilarious that she didn't know how to use a keyboard. And unfortunately, she didn't see the funny side. So we had a bit of an interesting conversation, and then about a month later my contract was cancelled. So I was a contractor, I wasn't a direct employee of Airbus, so the majority of British engineers at the time were contractors anyway, so it wasn't a huge surprise, because this was in the era of A380's cost cutting. So we were kind of expecting redundancies. I just wasn't expecting it to be me. But it was cool projects to be on. Learned a hell of a lot. And it was fun. I really enjoyed working with the Germans. They were fantastic. Not so much the French, I'm sorry guys, but the French people were brilliant. I loved living in France. The food, the people, bit rude at times, but no more rude than the UK in places. So, you know, human nature and all that. It's the people, not the environment. But the French legal and attitude toward non-French people was quite a shock to me. Working there, I couldn't work in the main building because I was a contractor, but in the UK I had full clearance, and then I had to go and sit in effectively the outer office while everybody else worked. and I could work on in my own little corner. But I had my own office in the UK, so it was like, yeah. Well, I had my own office for a short while until he put us in a big open plan space, but yeah, I found working with the French a bit frustrating, especially when it came down to some of the political and technical decisions. It was France first, everybody else fuck off, which I kind of get, but it didn't make international collaboration easy, and I know that the German, Spanish, and Italians that we were working with were equally frustrated, because we were all staying in the same hotel. We were regularly used to go out without the French, and I guess that alienated a few of the French, so probably built up a rod for our own back. But I have to say, I mean, I lived in Toulouse on and off for about 4 years on and off, and it was Toulouse itself is a bit like living in Manchester, but with much nicer weather. But the nice thing about that is 20-30 minutes and you're outside in the countryside, and there's a couple of hours. On a weekend you could go some amazing places that were just really beautiful. I used to, at the time, I was big into motorcycles, still am to a degree, but ill health means I don't get to ride, so it's kind of taken the fun off. So we used to go into sort of like Andorra and like trips out to Luxembourg and Cannes. I got friends that the family is very rich, very, very rich. And we used to go down to Cannes and stay in their beach house. I think that's one of the reasons my boss kept me around for so long, is the perks of... have I just screwed up? I think I've just screwed that up. Yeah, I have. Shit. Yeah, I need to buff all those out a bit more, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just... screw it, I'll fix that later. Because it means remaking it. I don't want to do that just yet. I'm not sure it's necessary anyway. Right, so the way these work is there's a fixed shaft here that spins, and then there's a shaft in the center that's essentially floating, but has an end, a captive end, which is on that nut, and that shaft moves in and out, which moves these linkages and changes the pitch of these blades, so it allows the aircraft to yaw. What I'm trying to decide how to do at the moment trying to decide is that going to be enough detail for what we want? I think it probably is. Oh, did some work on A400M as well toward the end of my time at Airbus. That was great. I really enjoyed travelling to Seville, but my career at Airbus was like, certainly at Filton, was mad. Sorry. I literally travelled 4 days out of every week. I'd start off Monday in the office in Bristol, and then I'd be on we used to fly out films before they closed the runway. I'd literally start the week in my office in Filton, and then Tuesdays would be Toulouse. So Monday was Filton, Tuesday was Toulouse, Wednesday was Hamburg, Thursday was sort of split between Seville and Barcelona. No, Seville and Madrid. And it could be either, or it could be both, it depended. Really enjoyed the first year of it, but it got very old very quickly. Again, it's just one of those things. You think international business travel is cool and exciting and exotic, and it once the novelty wears off, it's hotels and airports. There's nothing else to it, and it wears very quickly. Eurofighter was pretty much the same. That was a lot of international travel for what I did. Most of it was UK time, but I did a lot of short trips. Again, working with projects that got fairly political fairly quickly. And I don't miss that aspect of it, the politics of it all. It was kind of cool to be on the inside of things, but at the same time, it got old really quickly. There's only so much time you can spend away from home before you start to sort of wish you were at home. And living out of suitcases is mentally a killer. It's why in later life I've kind of refused a lot of contracts that saw me travelling. There's a guy that I knew, and he got to the point where he was an incredible engineer. I mean, he could have been making millions, like working abroad. And I asked him why he was working in a shitty BNFL office at Sellafield one time. And he'd had this really amazing career. He'd worked at Boeing and all over the world doing various things. And I asked him, just to let you know, why he chose to do what he said. He said, ask yourself why you work. And he goes, so you get enough money so you can retire. So one day you've got enough money to retire and do nothing, spend time with your friends, go to the pub, have a chill out. And he goes, yeah, it's great. Sounds cool, doesn't it? He goes, yeah. He said, well, if I enjoy... Come on. Why are you not undoing, you horrible... He goes, if you spend your entire life working so that you can afford to retire, and you only retire at the end of your life, when you can't do some of the fun things that you decided you wanted to do with your life, like, you know, travel and see the world. He said, well, I got somebody else to pay me to travel and see the world. I worked, I made enough money to do what I wanted to when I wanted to do it, and I get to now, he was in his 40s, he said, now I'm in my 40s and I'm old enough and I have a family, I get to sit back and appreciate the life that I've had, and I get to do it in the company of my family and my friends. I was like, yeah, you can't really fault that idea. It's kind of hard to argue. So ever since, I've just kind of taken jobs that I liked. Once I hit my 50s, it was a case of, is that interesting? Do I have enough money to survive? Yeah, okay. And certainly my late 40s and early 50s have been not the healthiest I've ever been. But at the same time, I've been all over the world. I've had a pretty interesting life. I've done some amazing things, or at least my fingerprints are on some amazing bits of engineering and whatever. So, I've served in several wars. I've, yeah, had an interesting existence, so... And now I get to sit on my arse and make 3D models. And occasionally I get paid for it. Right, so... 90 minutes in, 1 hour 26, and we've got a tail rotor. So I'm a little bit surprised. So I'm going to move that down, because I'm not going to be too precious. I don't think... don't think that's off center. I think it is actually... It is tapered down. It could probably do with coming up a little bit if needs be. Let's grab that tail boom. So let's see what that does if I go to the front side. See, that's way too high. I don't mind bringing it up a little bit, but So let's go up an inch. Let's go 25 mil. Don't know why that is in. Ah. Hmm. Right. So let's just go into here. I'm feeling some sort of red. See, I don't know how far out that really should be. I've got a lot of suspicion there's some sort of boss behind that, but it's finding a picture. There we go. So there is some sort of webbed boss behind this. So let's grab that. I'm just waffling to myself anyway. So what I'm just doing at the minute is trying to work out how to make sense of the chaos that is this UV. So a lot of this is I thought I'd unwrapped, but screwed up somewhere. So we only really need one of these to unwrap, and then we can obviously just replicate them away. Yes, you can instance them, is the other thing that I was going to say. But I've discovered in the past, at least in Modo, that if I instance it, I get problems trying to UV it later. I don't know whether or not it's just that Subsys doesn't like the FBX that comes out of the other end of this or not. I don't know. Right, so that's 12. So it is nicely unwrapped. What I am going to do is Let's just thin that down. Where the hell is that? Oh, there it is. So 100. Yeah, I didn't unwrap all of this with it before I... So let's grab these and just get rid of them. That is the advantage of instancing, to be fair. Is I can just... What I do to the master obviously passes down to all the other instances. But let's say, when you come to UV it doesn't seem to play very well with Modo. It may be different in Blender, experiences may vary. I'm not saying it's the same for everybody, but so that's all UV'd, but we've still got, obviously things are being overlaid. You can see its faces sat on top of other faces. So what I need to do is just grab these parts and move them off. So I'll tell you what, let's go back to the right view. So we're going to keep since that's the complete one, I'm just going to delete these. I completely forgot about this, but it gives me an excuse to explain about UDIMs as well. So between me waffling about my career and how wonderful my life is, which, you know, it's had its ups and downs, let's not go into my love life. Which has been a disaster. There will be some gems about how to think about your work and how to plan it. So love life briefly for a moment. If you thought my love life, my home life was everything was brilliant, ask yourself why I'm sat here on a Wednesday night or Tuesday night, whatever it is, talking to you lot. Right, so that is a pivot we're not going to need until later. Everything there is a duplicate, is a set of faces sat on top of each other. Everything that's bright red. So, and it's not all scaled properly. So, if I come back in here, what you can see what I'm doing is literally just uncovering anything that's got red in it at the moment. So, grab all of that. I'm going to go pack. So that is the hub of the stuff. The majority of the tail rotor. So let's grab everything that we want to duplicate. Again, duplicate, radial array, snapping. So we've got 5, we'll send it around to 360 in the next axis. But you can see what's happened here now. All of that has gone bright red. So again, talking about UDIMs, what I meant about UDIMs in a previous conversation is you can see these numbers here, 1002, 1003. So 1001 is UDIM, it's the first UDIM, which don't know what an acronym stands for, can't remember. Someone told me once, or at least I knew once, I don't remember it anymore. I'm old, get over it. So this is effectively one texture. I don't think we've got a texture loaded. Backdrop. Don't think it's... I can't remember. Show image. Yeah, it's not in there. You can't really see it. I don't know why it's not showing it, but it's not a problem. Yeah, so what we want to do is we need to effectively select everything that's red. So double click on that. I'm holding shift key down and double clicking. Not that it translates to other tools, but I'm doing a group select, so most software works in a similar way. So when I bring the UV away, that's got most of that. So I want to keep the vertical because it's easier to work in the vertical. So I'm just going to deselect, so control and drag a box around it. So I need my tool out here. So you can see this positioned here, and this allows me to offset into a different UDIM. So if the texture is set to UDIM 1001, it will just replicate whatever that is over there, what is in the first UDIM. So I can have a texture that paints this, and it'll just replicate in each of these boxes, unless I assign it to a specific UDIM number with a texture in the material. Does that? I'm hoping that makes sense. Anyway, right. So I can then just rename this to tail rotor. Let's actually prefix that with UV. So we've got a specific UV for that texture now. I'm probably, in all honesty, going to end up merging that with the main rotor texture down the line. You can see we've got a bit of a boss on there. So if I bring the hull and the tail boom back in, it doesn't look quite so flimsy as it did before. But when you bake now, that's the other thing, the other reason for UDIMs. If I was to bake this, it would distort. You'd end up with artifacts. So what I'm going to do, because I'm nice, I like to explain things properly, even though I screw up quite a lot. is if I cut this, paste it into a different thing here. So these are faces that I didn't unwrap and I don't need, so that's fine. So if I just come into this, I'm going to move that back over. I'm just wondering whether this is going to work now, given that it's on a different object. Yeah, it should work. It's on a different object, but the same space. So if I select that, so it's on a separate material, so I can just add render outputs, lighting, ambient occlusion. So let's go in here. Sorry to do this in render. There we go. 256. So if I go to render to outputs. So this is the final color, and you can just see the shading. So that is a fairly clean render. I'm just wondering whether this is actually going to work now when I do this. So that's roughly what it should actually look like. But if I do this, if I cut that and paste it on here now, let's just change the resolution as well. More. So what you should see, or what I'm expecting to see, is some artifacting. And it doesn't look like it's going to do it to me. Oh, that's embarrassing. What I was going to say is normally what you get is the way, because of the way of the UV and the lighting, it bounces off the surface, and it's supposed to give you like a shadow. And if there is a slight offset with surfaces, you can end up with like weird cast lines and whatever across it. I'm obviously a little bit too precise with my model, so when it's baked, it's come through nicely. So I'm going to say that's a good job. I just failed to demonstrate what I was talking about, but proven that I am pretty accurate. Rename tail rotor. Actually, hang on, let's makes life a little bit easier if I do it this way. Rotor tail. Jeep. So mark that as a screen so I know that I've done it. So there's a ton of stuff that I still need to do to the fuselage. Excuse me. I'm going to do that again offline because, as I said yesterday, there's things that, I've shown you techniques to do it. It's the same thing with the fuel mounts there, the fuel holes. I need to make fuel caps for that. You've seen me make cylinders and bevel cylinders. Same thing for the missile approach warning sensors. Certain details, nothing really exciting there. Main rotor is going to be pretty much the same as I've just done. I kind of achieved a little bit more than I was expecting to tonight. I thought it would be a bit slower. But I think I might just call it there and make a quick dash to the supermarket, because I fancy something sweet. Yeah, so I'm going to grab this as part of the housekeeping, and I'll move that into the done folder, because I'm using my old model as like a to-do list. So yeah, tomorrow I think we'll do the main rotor. I'm going to continue making sensors and antennas and whatever offline, and get the boring, repetitive dross out of the way. And then once the main rotor's done, I think tomorrow night will be that. And then the day after, we will, assuming I'm going to be here, I'm not sure, we will start on the interior, and that way, if I can block out the interior shape, I can then get the windows cut into the fuselage, and we can either create blanking plugs for them as an option, and then we can quite honestly just start pushing forward with details and making high poly seats that we can then bake onto low poly. I'm not overly concerned with making a high poly external, because a lot of it will be little nubbly bits that I make and shove over the top of the low poly model. So, and the rest is just all like menial little details. But the more interesting stuff becomes between making like the sling seats for the cargo area. I'm making the high poly for that you're actually going to see when you're sat inside, and we can make a certain resolution. So yeah, I think that's it. It's 9:30 here. It's taken us to 1 hour 52. So I'm going to call it there. And then go and get a packet of biscuits, because I have nothing nice in this house at all. So that's it. Yeah. Thanks very much, guys. I apologise for the waffle if you're not interested in the waffle. I'd like to kind of know what you kind of want me to talk about while I'm doing this, other than sit and and ah. But that's it. Yeah. So I'm gonna go and satisfy my sugar rush, or sugar craving. So take care, mate. Ta-ta. Ah, there you go, Martin. UDIM means U-dimension. So there we go. Anyway, thank you very much. Good night. Have a great time, and I will hopefully see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.